The morning I listed every piece of HOA equipment from my barn on Facebook Marketplace as free pickup, 217 vehicles arrived at my driveway before noon. Pickup trucks, box trailers, a school bus converted into a mobile home. One man drove down from Pittsburgh with a flatbed to get the commercial BBQ grill. A Girl Scout troop came for the folding chairs. The VFW sent 3 trucks for the bleachers. Miranda Voss, the HOA president of Sycamore Ridge Estates, was standing in the middle of the driveway in a white blazer and sunglasses, screaming that I was stealing her community's property. What Miranda did not know was that I had served her a 30-day notice under West Virginia Code 30 days earlier. What her husband did not know was that his cardiology license was about to be reviewed for the fireworks storage violation. What neither of them knew was that I had been a licensed auctioneer for 43 years. Stay with me. This is how the inventory got moved. My name is Reuben Truitt, and for 43 years I sold people's lives to the highest bidder. I was a West Virginia licensed auctioneer from 1982 to 2024. I ran Truitt Family Auctions out of a 1896 bank barn on my farm in Monroe County, about 40 miles south of Lewisburg. I ran cattle sales, estate auctions, farm dispersals, antique consignments, and one memorable 1991 weekend where I auctioned off a complete working blacksmith shop from a man whose grandfather had shod General Lee's horse. I retired my license in 2024 when my back told me the gavel was heavier than the work. I live on 42 acres of rolling pasture with my wife Susanna, a retired kindergarten teacher from Monroe County Elementary. The land has been in the Truitt family since 1871, when my great-great-grandfather Orville bought it with Confederate paper that turned out to be worth more as kindling than as currency. The barn was built in 1896 by my great-grandfather Alton. It has a stone foundation, hand-hewn oak post and beam framing, and 3 working floors. It has stood through 91 Monroe County winters. It has never once leaked. We had one daughter. Her name was Amelia. She was born in 1990, and she died in March of 2022. Fentanyl. The coroner in Raleigh County said it was a contaminated batch. She had been 3 years clean at the time. She had a 10-year-old son named Tucker. I took custody of Tucker 6 months later. Susanna and I are legally his parents now. He is 15. He is a sophomore at Monroe County High. He looks exactly like his mother looked at that age. He has her laugh. He has her temper. He helps me in the barn every Saturday. The barn was how I made my living. It was also how I grieved. After Amelia died, I spent 3 weeks in the barn sorting her old horse tack, her 4-H ribbons, her sketchbook of West Virginia wildflowers. I did not sell any of it. I hung her ribbons on the second-floor workshop wall. I keep the sketchbook in a glass case on my workbench. In 2018, a developer named Pelham Holdings bought the old McCready Dairy Farm north of my property and platted a 40-lot subdivision called Sycamore Ridge Estates. They built slowly. The houses are big. The lots are 2 acres each. Most of the buyers are retirees from Northern Virginia or young doctors from Charleston who want a country estate. We did not object. We fixed our share of the gravel road. We waved at the new neighbors. The first 5 years were fine. Then, in the spring of 2023, a woman named Miranda Voss bought the biggest house at the top of the ridge with her husband Kenton, a cardiologist who commuted to Charleston 3 days a week. Miranda was 52. She had been a commercial real estate broker in Northern Virginia for 20 years. She moved down here, in her own words, to cultivate an authentic rural elevation experience. She ran for the HOA board in 2024 on a platform of community beautification and centralized asset management. She became president in early 2025. At the August 2026 HOA meeting, Miranda passed what she called the Community Asset Consolidation Resolution. The resolution, in summary, authorized the board to identify suitable shared spaces within the community for the centralized storage of HOA-owned equipment and seasonal materials. The resolution did not define shared spaces. She identified mine. It was a Wednesday afternoon in early September when Tucker called me. I was sitting on a folding chair at a farm equipment auction in Lewisburg, watching a 1953 Alice Chalmers WD sell to a man from Pendleton County for $3,400. My phone buzzed in my shirt pocket. I saw Tucker's name and stepped out into the gravel parking lot. "Grandpa, you need to come home." His voice was tight. I knew the tight. "Tuck, What's wrong? Somebody is in the barn. Who? A woman, in a white blazer. She's got 4 men. They're unloading a box truck. Did you call Grandma? She's at the library. I'm at the house. Grandpa, they've got a Christmas tree the size of the 2nd floor loft. I set my coffee on the hood of the Ford. I said, Tucker, stay in the house. Do not go outside. Keep the doors locked. I will be home in 2 hours. Grandpa, Tuck, stay inside. Record from the window if you can, but stay inside. I drove home at 82 miles per hour. I took the back roads through Caldwell and Alderson because the interstate was backed up at the way station. I arrived at the farm at 4:10. A 30-foot box truck with Voss Family Storage lettered on the side was parked at my loading dock. 4 men were unloading a 40-foot commercial climbing wall in sections. I parked. I got out. I did not shut the truck door. Miranda. She turned with a practiced smile. Reuben. Perfect timing. We were just finishing the main phase. Let me catch you up. She walked over with the clipboard. Per the Community Asset Consolidation Resolution passed at the August board meeting, Sycamore Ridge Estates has designated your barn as our primary shared asset storage facility. I know this is a bit of an adjustment. You'll receive a formal invoice for the community contribution assessment tomorrow. It's $2,500 for the year, which I think is very reasonable given the honor of hosting our collective infrastructure. I looked at the clipboard. I looked at the climbing wall. I looked at the box truck. I looked at my barn. Through the open loading dock doors, I could see that my 3-floor working auction barn had been, in the 4 hours I had been gone, transformed into a staging warehouse. Folding chairs stacked to the 2nd floor joist, banquet tables against the east wall, a commercial BBQ grill on a pallet, what looked like pallet racks of holiday inflatables, tinsel garlands and clear totes, wooden holiday signage, a carousel horse, 2 industrial patio heaters, and, against the back wall of the loading dock, what my eye identified from 15 feet away as 4 cases of professional-grade mortar fireworks. I did not speak for a full 10 seconds. Then I said, Miranda, please remove everything from my barn and leave my property. Reuben, sweetie, the board passed the resolution. This is the designated storage site. I'm not in a position to... Miranda, your board cannot designate my barn as anything. This is private property. Reuben, we can discuss the particulars at the next board meeting. In the meantime, please consider this an honor. Your barn has been elevated to community status. I did not raise my voice. I have been through enough auctions to know that volume is the least convincing currency. Miranda, I am asking you, politely and on the record, to instruct your crew to load everything back on the truck and leave my property. She laughed. A small, bright, practiced laugh. Reuben, be reasonable. You have to see the bigger picture. She turned back to the men. She called out, let's finish the climbing wall sections. We're slightly ahead of schedule. I walked past her to the house. Tucker was standing at the kitchen window with his phone in his hand. Grandpa, did you see what she said? I heard what she said. Grandpa, she did it on purpose. Yes, she did. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, Tuck, not yet. I'm going to call somebody who knows this better than the sheriff. I called Winslow Harkness at 5:02 p.m. Winslow Harkness is a 67-year-old estate attorney who runs a small practice out of a brick federal-style house in Lewisburg that he inherited from his grandfather. He has known me for 29 years. He was Amelia's attorney when she needed a custody agreement in 2015. He was Susanna's attorney when her mother died. He is the quietest, loud man in Greenbrier County. He answered on the first ring. Reuben, I heard about the barn already. Wiley Holcomb called me an hour ago. Already? Wiley Holcomb hears everything. He was at the auction in Lewisburg with you. He came home the short way. He drove past your place and he saw the box truck. Figure. Reuben, do not touch the contents. Do not move a box. Do not start an argument with Miranda. Document. Photograph. Lock up what you can. I want to drive down Friday and look at everything personally. In the meantime, do not return any of her phone calls, texts, or emails. Understood. And Winslow. Trust me, there is a better remedy. I am going to explain Friday. Just buy the time. I hung up. Susanna came home at 5:40. She stood in the kitchen and looked out the window at Miranda's crew still unloading. She did not say anything for a long time. Then she said, Reuben, is that a carousel horse? Yes. Is that a 40-foot climbing wall? Yes. Reuben, there are fireworks in our barn. Yes. She put a casserole dish down on the stove. Reuben, I taught kindergarten for 36 years. I have ended tantrums, and I have de-escalated second-grade coups. What are you going to do? I'm going to wait. I'm going to document. Winslow wants to see everything Friday. And then? And then I'm going to do the thing she has made sure I'm allowed to do. What does that mean? I looked at her. Susie, she put it in my barn. That changes the math. Susanna poured us both a glass of the iced tea I do not drink, and she drank. She watched the window. Reuben, she said, Amelia would have loved this. I know. The HOA board met 3 days later. Wiley Holcomb attended on my behalf with a tape recorder. The board voted, 5-1, to ratify Miranda's designation of my barn as the Sycamore Ridge Shared Asset Storage Facility. The one dissenting vote was a retired teacher named Bonnie Truesdale, who told me later over the phone that she had spent the entire meeting trying to figure out if I was hallucinating or if grown adults were actually doing this. The board also approved a $500 per month maintenance assessment against me, retroactive to the day of the fill. They voted to issue a lien if I did not pay within 30 days. The following Saturday, Miranda held what she called a community holiday decor prep party at my barn. 29 residents came. Some carried cookies and punch. They spent 4 hours on my loading dock assembling light strands, unpacking inflatable snowmen, and laughing loudly enough that Tucker came out of the house and watched from the back porch with his arms crossed. Tucker said, quietly, "Grandpa, are we just letting them?" I said, "Tuck, we're waiting." Waiting for what? For her to leave a long enough trail to follow. He did not fully understand. He was 15, but he trusted me. He went back inside and he did his algebra homework at the kitchen table, and he did not say another word about it all night. By the end of September, Miranda had held 3 prep parties in my barn. Her Facebook group, called Sycamore Ridge Living, had posted 41 photographs of our lovely shared storage space, a perfect rural backdrop for our collective endeavor. Each photograph was geotagged to my property. Each photograph named the barn as a community facility. I documented every single post. I printed every single photograph. I logged every single guest who came through my gate. Winslow Harkness had asked me to build a record, and I was building him a very thorough one. On October 4th, I padlocked the barn. On October 5th, Miranda cut the lock. Tucker caught it on camera. He had installed the wildlife camera himself the Sunday before, on a sycamore 20 feet from the loading dock door. He was 15. He had watched a YouTube tutorial. He had mounted it 6 feet up, pointed at a 45-degree angle, and he had tested it with me in the frame. It had 8-second pre-trigger buffering and cellular upload to his phone. The video was 17 seconds long. A man in khakis and a Sycamore Ridge hardscape polo walking up to my loading dock at 9:48 on a Sunday morning with a 4.5-inch angle grinder. A shower of sparks from my Medico lock. A second man behind him, holding a new padlock with an HOA tag on it. Miranda in the frame at second 12, standing at the edge of the driveway with a coffee, nodding. The Medico falling to the gravel, the new lock going on. 17 seconds. Tucker sent me the clip at 9:50 a.m. I was at the feed store in Union. I watched it leaning against the tailgate of my truck. I called Winslow. "Winslow, she just cut my lock." Silence. "Reuben, come to my office Monday at 9. Bring Tucker if he'll come. Bring every piece of paper you have on this. I want to build the file this week." Winslow. "Yes. How long before we can move?" Reuben. "If we file notice Monday afternoon, the clock starts Tuesday. 30 days. That puts us at the weekend after Thanksgiving. Black Friday weekend." Winslow was quiet. I could hear him thinking. "Reuben, I want to be very careful here. I want to explain the statute to you in person. There is a specific remedy under West Virginia Code that Miranda has, through her conduct, unlocked. It is cleaner than a lawsuit. It is faster than a lawsuit. It is more satisfying than a lawsuit. And I want you to sit with this before you say anything. It is perfectly legal." Winslow, Monday, 9 a.m. Bring Tucker. Tucker came with me. He wore the khakis Susanna had bought him for his spring band concert, and the button-down shirt Amelia had given him the Christmas before she died. He sat in Winslow's office with his hands folded, and he listened while a 67-year-old lawyer with half glasses on a chain explained to him, step by step, what West Virginia Code Section 38-10-4 does when a neighbor fills your barn with their stuff without asking. Winslow said, "Tucker, You tell me what you understand. Tucker thought about it. Then he said, if Grandpa gives her 30 days to come get her stuff, and she doesn't come get it, then the stuff is his. That's correct. Legally, it's called disposal of abandoned personal property on private land. The owner has 30 days from the date of certified notice. If the property isn't removed in that time, legal title transfers to the landowner. And then Grandpa can do anything he wants with it? Anything he wants. Sell it. Keep it. Give it away. Tucker thought about that. Then he said, Mr. Harkness, can Grandpa give it away for free? Winslow looked at me over his glasses. Mr. Truitt, your grandson may have the better instinct. I laughed. I had not laughed in 9 days. Tucker did not smile. He was thinking harder than I had ever seen him think. He said, Mr. Harkness, if he gives it all away for free, on the internet, and people come to pick it up, is that a problem for anybody except her? Winslow folded his hands. Tucker, that is, in fact, a public service. Tucker nodded slowly. He turned to me. Grandpa, please do that. I looked at him. I looked at Winslow. I thought about Amelia. I thought about the box truck pulling into my driveway while Tucker was home alone. I thought about the carousel horse. I thought about the fireworks. I said, Winslow, draft the notice. Winslow already had it printed. He slid it across the desk. He said, Reuben, sign 3 copies. I'll walk one to the county clerk this afternoon. I'll certified mail one to Miranda and one to the HOA. Tucker, you post the 3rd one on the barn door yourself. Tucker took the notice. He read it carefully. He said, yes, sir. We walked out of Winslow's office at 9:46 a.m. The clock had just started. Winslow drove down to the farm that afternoon with a paralegal and a digital inventory tablet. He walked the barn floor by floor and room by room for 4 hours. By the time he came out, he had a list. He sat at my kitchen table with Susanna and Tucker and me. Reuben, let me walk through the picture as I now see it, and I want Tucker to listen because I'll ask him questions. Tucker sat up straighter. First, the HOA has, without consent, placed $247,000 of personal property on private land. That is a textbook case of abandoned property under West Virginia Code, Section 38-10-4. The 30-day notice I filed today puts every owner of every item on notice. If the items are not removed by the expiration, they legally become yours. Second, I found 4 cases of professional-grade mortar fireworks in the back of your loading dock. Those are federally regulated consumer fireworks, subject to storage requirements under ATF rules and West Virginia Code Section 29-3E. The HOA does not have a storage permit. I know because I pulled the state database. Possession without a permit is a Class B felony. Susanna put her coffee down. Winslow continued. Third, I went through the HOA board minutes for the last 3 years. The board has purchased these items over a 6-year period using community dues. Total documented spend, $247,000. But, and this is important, not all of these items were purchased by the HOA. I identified $38,000 worth of items that appear to be Miranda Voss's personal antiques and seasonal decor. She has, in effect, been using her own HOA's warehouse to store her personal property, and now she is using yours. Tucker said, Is that stealing, Mr. Harkness? It is closer to embezzlement than theft. It is a breach of fiduciary duty. Can she go to jail for that? She can. The fireworks are the shorter path. Susanna said, What about the invoice she sent Reuben? Void on its face. An HOA cannot bill a non-member. Reuben is not a member of Sycamore Ridge Estates. He has never paid a dime of dues. The lien threat is empty. I said, Winslow, say the plan out loud. Winslow took off his glasses and set them on the table. Reuben, I want to propose something that I have never recommended to a client in 39 years of practice. I want you to not sue. Susanna laughed. Tucker did not. Reuben, listen. If you sue her, this takes 2 years. She will delay every motion. Her husband will retain a Charleston firm. They will argue that the barn was volunteered, that the invoice was a misunderstanding, that the board vote was legitimate. The case will grind. You will win eventually. It will be expensive. It will be anticlimactic. The alternative? We follow the statute. 30 days. At midnight on the expiration, every item in that barn transfers to you by operation of law. You are a licensed auctioneer with 43 years of experience. You know how to move inventory. The cleanest disposition is a public offering at $0. Free pickup, advertised on every platform you have. We coordinate with 3 local charities for the higher value items. We announce the date in advance. We document every transaction. Miranda loses $247,000 in community assets in a single morning. The HOA has to refund every member who donated. The fireworks violation gets her arrested. Her board is recalled. And you do it all inside the letter of West Virginia law. Susanna said, "Winslow, that is evil." Susanna, that is literature. Tucker was grinning. It was the first grin I had seen on his face in 3 weeks. I looked at each of them. I thought about it for a minute. I said, "Winslow, 30 days. Start the clock." Winslow filed the notice with the Monroe County clerk at 2:40 that afternoon. He certified mailed 3 copies before 5. The clerk called me at 5:15 to confirm receipt. The statutory clock had officially started. I spent the next 30 days building the best inventory I had ever built. Tucker helped me. We started on a Saturday at dawn. I brought the flatbed trailer around to the loading dock, and I set up a work table on it with a laptop, a measuring tape, a camera tripod, and a stack of laminated inventory tags. Tucker handled the camera. I handled the descriptions. We worked for 11 hours that day. By the end of the first week, we had photographed, measured, described, and tagged every single item in the barn. $247,000 of HOA-funded property on a single spreadsheet. Serial numbers where available. Manufacturer. Condition. Estimated market value from my own 43 years of experience at the auction stand. 314 individual listings. Winslow added a dedicated legal column. Each item was tagged with its statutory basis for transfer. We separated Miranda's personal items into a dedicated section at the back of the loading dock. $38,000. 18 Lennox holiday pieces. 3 Persian rugs. 2 Eames lounge chair reproductions. A steamer trunk. 12 vintage ski sweaters. Winslow advised that these items would be returned to Miranda separately under a different statutory process, not as abandoned property, because she had mixed them with community assets in a pattern consistent with personal use, but as recovered private effects of a person being investigated for breach of fiduciary duty. The takeaway, if you ever find yourself in a similar storage dispute, is this. The difference between storing your stuff on my land and giving me your stuff under West Virginia law is a calendar. 30 days of certified notice, written, not spoken, filed with the county, not verbal, posted on the premises, not assumed. If you want the remedy, you follow the paper. Do not skip a step. I contacted 3 charities in the second week. The Mountaineer Children's Hospital in Morgantown, the VFW Post 4578 in Alderson, the Monroe County Meals on Wheels program. The Children's Hospital representative, a development director named Prudence Langley, drove down on a Tuesday afternoon. She walked the barn floor with me. She identified the 40-foot climbing wall, 8 sets of inflatable holiday characters, and the carousel horse as items they would accept for their annual fundraising carnival. She shook my hand for about 10 seconds. She said, "Mr. Truitt, are you sure about this?" "I'm sure." "Can I say something personal?" "You can." "Your daughter. I read the obituary when Susanna's church posted it. I was so sorry." I swallowed. I did not speak for a moment. I said, "Prudence, you'll take the climbing wall? We'll take it Friday after Thanksgiving. We'll bring the truck. Make sure your truck is there before the online listing goes live at 8 a.m. Black Friday. I don't want the climbing wall in the free pickup pile. It's a hospital donation." "Understood, sir." Wiley Holcomb spent the 3rd week helping me build the listings. Wiley knows Facebook Marketplace better than anybody in Monroe County. He has sold 4 tractors and a greenhouse on it. He built a master post with thumbnails of the 100 largest items. He built sub-listings for the smaller things. He scheduled every post for 8 a.m. on the day after Thanksgiving. I called Sheriff Penrose on the 22nd day. I told him what was going to happen on Friday morning. I told him to bring 2 extra deputies. He asked me one question. "Reuben, is Miranda going to do something stupid?" "Yes." "How stupid?" "She had her contractor cut my Medico. She is going to try to cut the new lock." "Reuben, install another camera. I'll station a unit at your driveway Thursday night." On the 27th day, Tucker and I walked the barn one last time. We did not speak much. The Christmas tree was still there, 2 stories tall, wrapped in plastic for storage. Tucker looked up at it. He said, "Grandpa, Is anybody going to take this? Tuck, somebody's going to take everything. Miranda found out about the notice on the 4th day after Winslow mailed it. I know because Wiley Holcomb has a cousin married to a man who delivers mail on Sycamore Ridge. The cousin texted Wiley at 4:20 in the afternoon on a Tuesday with a picture of the USPS certified mail signature confirmation. Miranda Voss, 14 Sycamore Ridge Drive. Received 3:47 p.m. Miranda called me at 4:40. I did not answer. She called 7 more times over the next 2 hours. I let every call go to voicemail. Winslow had specifically instructed me not to speak with her. Every attempted communication was recorded, time-stamped, and logged by my phone. At 6:47, she left a voicemail. I listened to it later with Winslow. Her voice was calibrated the way it had been in my driveway. Bright, polished, brittle at the edges. Reuben, this is Miranda. I think there's been a real misunderstanding. I received a very formal letter today that I'm sure was not intended to convey what it appeared to convey. I'd love to sit down with you, perhaps with a bottle of nice wine, and talk through our community partnership. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Winslow deleted the voicemail from my phone after I forwarded him a copy. At 7:15 on Tuesday, Miranda drove a Subaru Outback into my driveway. She got out with a bottle of wine and a Tupperware of what looked like homemade fudge. I watched her from the kitchen window. I did not open the door. Susanna did not open the door. Tucker stood behind me with his hands in his pockets. She rang the bell 7 times. She stood on the porch for 11 minutes. She left the wine and the fudge on the porch bench. She drove away. I threw both of them in the outdoor trash can at 8 a.m. the next morning, unopened, with the lids still sealed. Susanna took a photograph of them in the trash. On the 5th day after the notice, Miranda's husband Kenton drove into my driveway in a Mercedes S-Class. He parked, got out, walked up to my front porch, and knocked on the door. I opened it. He was a big man, barrel-chested, silver hair, reading glasses on a chain. He wore the relaxed, charcoal half-sip of a man who had made $2.5 million a year for 15 years. Reuben, may I come in? No. He blinked. Reuben, I'd like to have a conversation about the situation my wife has created. I am prepared to... Kenton, I will not speak to you without my attorney present. If you want to have a conversation, you can schedule it with Winslow Harkness in Lewisburg. His number is on the notice you received. Have a nice evening. I closed the door. He did not leave for 9 minutes. He stood on my porch. I watched him through the glass. Tucker watched with me. Eventually, Kenton walked back to his Mercedes and drove off. He called Winslow at 8 the next morning. Winslow called me back at 11. Reuben, here is what Kenton proposes. Miranda will pay a $10,000 apology fee. The HOA will retract the resolution. You reciprocate by withdrawing the notice and allowing the HOA to remove the property over 6 months at mutually agreeable scheduling. Winslow, I told him you would not accept. Good. He said he would call back with a better offer. He called back twice over the next week. The offers escalated. $20,000, $40,000. On the 17th day after the notice, he offered $75,000 and a formal public apology from Miranda in the Lewisburg paper. Winslow asked me what I wanted to do. I thought about it. I thought about Amelia. I thought about Tucker calling me at 3:10 on a Wednesday afternoon, trying not to cry. I thought about the carousel horse. I thought about my grandfather Alton framing the barn in 1896 with a broad axe and a pair of oxen. I said, Winslow, tell him no. Tell him we will see him Friday after Thanksgiving, at 8 a.m. in my driveway. Winslow said, Reuben, are you sure? Yes, he told Kenton. Kenton did not call again. Miranda did. On the 28th day after the notice, at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, Tucker's cellular camera triggered at the loading dock. The video was 4 minutes and 19 seconds long. Miranda Voss, in a black fleece and a headlamp, approached my barn at 2:11 a.m. She carried a battery-powered angle grinder. She approached the padlock I had installed on the loading dock door at Winslow's recommendation. A Medico Signature Series padlock, hardened steel shackle, rated for commercial applications. I had 3 of them. Wiley had 2. Winslow had 1. She had brought a 4.5-inch grinder with what looked like a professional cutoff wheel. She attempted to cut the lock for 1 minute and 37 seconds. The Medico held. She tried a second time with a fresh blade. She cut for another minute and 40 seconds. Sparks. Steam. A bright white glow off the side of the barn. The grinder battery died before the lock gave up. At 3:04, she threw the grinder into the gravel drive and walked back to her Subaru with her hands on her hips, breathing hard. She got in. She drove off. Tucker's camera caught everything. The upload hit my phone at 3:07, Wiley's phone at 3:08, Winslow's phone at 3:09, Sheriff Penrose's office at 3:10. Sheriff Penrose called me at 6:42 a.m. Reuben, we have everything. Her, the grinder, the timestamps, her plate on the dash cam of the deputy who was stationed at your gate. I'm not going to arrest her this morning because I want the Friday morning event to go cleanly. But I'm going to send a deputy to her house later today to serve her a notice of criminal trespass pending. She is going to know we know. Cyrus, thank you. Reuben, one more thing. The state fire marshal's office called me Monday. Their inspector, Ansel Crowder out of Charleston, is coming Friday morning. He wants to personally secure the fireworks. He'll be there at 7:45. Cyrus, yeah, this is going to be a day. Reuben, I have been sheriff of Monroe County for 16 years. I have never had an assignment like Friday. Prepare your driveway for traffic. I prepared my driveway. Tucker and I cleared the pasture west of the barn for overflow parking. Wiley brought his bush hog and cut the grass down to 4 inches. We marked 22 vehicle rows with orange flags. We ran temporary fencing from the barn to the road. We set up a 4-foot table at the loading dock with a box of pens and a stack of Winslow's inventory sheets. We posted a large laminated sign that read, "Pick up, check in, 1 item form per vehicle." Susanna baked 7 pans of brownies and 4 pans of blondies and set up a folding table in the driveway with a coffee urn, hot water for cocoa, and a sign that said, "Free, not listed. Refreshments only." Wiley's wife Linda brought a church hall chafing dish of pulled pork at 4 a.m. on Friday. She said, "Reuben, people are going to be hungry. You are going to be busy." Bonnie Truesdale drove over at 5. She brought a legal pad and a clipboard. She said, "Reuben, I am here to help you log pickups. I am done with the board." I said, "Bonnie, thank you." She said, "Reuben, I am here to do the right thing. Do not thank me." At 6:30, the first pickup truck rolled up my driveway. A husband and wife team from Ronsford. They had been camping overnight at the Monroe County rest stop so they could be first in line for the folding chairs. The listings were scheduled to go live at 8. By 7:15, 17 vehicles were lined up along the county road. By 7:40, Ansel Crowder from the state fire marshal's office arrived in a white state truck with a trailer. He walked the loading dock with Tucker, identified the 4 cases of mortar fireworks, photographed each case, loaded them into his trailer, and wrote me a receipt. He shook my hand. He said, "Mr. Truitt, I am going to be writing up this HOA's case for the state attorney general. I want you to know that your documentation is what made this possible." Ansel, thank you. Good luck today. This is going to be wild. He drove off at 7:52. At 7:58, I stood at the keyboard with Tucker next to me. At 8 a.m. exactly, we clicked publish on 214 Facebook Marketplace listings and 1 master Craigslist post titled, "Free Pickup, Entire HOA Storage Barn, Monroe County, West Virginia, Saturday only. Show up." Tucker said, "Grandpa, here we go." The first wave of cars hit my driveway at 8:04. By 9 a.m., 217 vehicles had come through my gate. By 10, 306. By 11, the overflow pasture was full. The county road was backed up for 3/4 of a mile toward Union, and Sheriff Penrose had posted 2 additional deputies on traffic control. The deputies were waving vehicles through a rolling rotation. Park, pick up 1 item, load, depart. The system worked. The scene from the loading dock was the kind of scene auctioneers dream about. A father and his 2 teenage sons were loading 120 folding chairs onto a flatbed for their church picnic. A Boy Scout troop in matching uniforms was disassembling a section of the climbing wall onto a rental truck on their way to a regional jamboree. The director of the Mountaineer Children's Hospital, Prudence Langley, had arrived at 7:50 with a 26-foot box truck and was supervising the loading of the carousel horse, 8 sets of inflatable holiday characters, and the 40-foot climbing wall into hospital transit. The VFW post 4578 had brought 3 trucks and a trailer for the bleachers and the commercial barbecue grill. A Meals on Wheels van from Alderson was loading the banquet tables. A family from Pendleton County had driven 2.5 hours for the industrial patio heaters. They loaded them, hugged me, and drove off in under 10 minutes. The 20-foot artificial Christmas tree left my barn at 9:47 a.m. in a U-Haul rented by a church group from Beckley. They had volunteered to use the tree at a community Christmas event for children of incarcerated parents. I did not ask them which children. I did not need to. Susanna watched the U-Haul pull out of the driveway with her hand over her mouth. Wiley Holcomb was running check-in. Bonnie Truesdale was logging pickups on the legal pad. Winslow Harkness was standing by the loading dock with a tablet, documenting every transaction. Tucker was handling the small item table, where he was giving away cases of holiday lights and strings of tinsel to children for free, with a little formal handshake each time. At 10:04, a WCHS-TV news van parked at my gate. A reporter named Weatherby Lane came up the driveway with a cameraman. She had received a tip from somebody at the Lewisburg court clerk's office. She had driven down from Charleston in a hurry. She interviewed me for 12 minutes at the edge of the loading dock. I did what I have done for 43 years at an auction stand. I gave her the facts in order, without elevation, without theater, without grievance. I explained the August resolution. I explained the fill. I explained the notice. I explained the statute. I explained the fireworks. I named the charities. I thanked my wife and my grandson. I did not name Miranda. I did not need to. At 10:32, Miranda Voss drove up my driveway in her Subaru Outback. She parked sideways across the pickup lane and got out in a white wool coat and leather boots. She walked up to the loading dock. She was screaming before she cleared the first row of parked vehicles. "You are stealing community property. Every single person in this line is complicit in theft. I am calling law enforcement." Sheriff Penrose was 15 feet away. He did not move. Miranda saw him. She walked straight up to him. "Sheriff, I want these people arrested. This man has unlawfully seized community assets and is distributing them to a mob." Sheriff Penrose took off his hat. He looked at her evenly. "Mrs. Voss, I am not going to arrest anybody here today. I am going to ask you to step back across the driveway to where your vehicle is parked." "I will not. This is my community's." She stepped forward. She grabbed at his sleeve. She should not have done that. A second deputy was behind her within 3 seconds. Sheriff Penrose stepped back 1 pace. The deputy took Miranda's arm. She struggled. She kicked at him. She caught him once in the shin. She was in cuffs within 7 seconds. She screamed. She screamed at the sheriff. She screamed at me. She screamed at the cameras. She screamed at Weatherby Lane, who was holding her boom mic 10 feet away. She screamed at Tucker, who was at the small item table, handing a 6-year-old a string of red Christmas lights. Tucker did not look up. The small girl with the Christmas lights said, "Thank you, sir." Tucker smiled at her and said, "You're welcome. Merry Christmas early." The cameras caught it all. At 11:09, a Monroe County Sheriff's Office transport cruiser took Miranda Voss to Union for processing. By noon, my barn was nearly empty. The aftermath unfolded in the long, quiet way that aftermaths do in Monroe County. Miranda Voss was charged with 1 count of attempted theft of evidence, 1 count of obstruction, 1 count of misdemeanor assault on a law enforcement officer, and 1 Class B felony count of unlawful storage of consumer fireworks under West Virginia Code Section 29-3E. She pleaded guilty in January to reduce charges. She was sentenced to 18 months of suspended jail time, a $45,000 fine, 300 hours of community service at the Mountaineer Children's Hospital donation intake dock, and a 2-year no-contact order against me, Susanna, and Tucker. Kenton Voss, her husband, was not criminally charged, but the West Virginia Board of Medicine opened a formal ethics inquiry into his signature on the HOA resolution that filled my barn. His hospital privileges in Charleston were suspended pending review. He settled with the board in March and accepted a 6-month suspension of his cardiology license, a $50,000 fine, and mandatory retraining on fiduciary conflicts. The Sycamore Ridge Estates HOA board was recalled in a 38-2 vote in February. Bonnie Truesdale was elected president. The first agenda item at the new board's first meeting was the unanimous repeal of the Community Asset Consolidation Resolution. The second item was a letter of apology to me, read aloud by Bonnie and entered into the community record. The HOA dues were refunded in full to every homeowner who had contributed to the items in my barn over the previous 6 years. Total refund, $263,000, paid from the HOA's insurance reserves and from a special assessment against Miranda's property. Miranda's house was listed in May. It sold in August for $150,000 less than she and Kenton had paid for it. The Vosses moved, I am told, to a gated community outside Sarasota. In March, Susanna and I established the Amelia Truitt Recovery Fund. The fund supports three things. First, harm reduction outreach and recovery scholarships for young people in Monroe, Summers, and Greenbrier counties who are on paths similar to my daughter's. Second, summer arts programming at the county high school for kids who have lost a parent to the opioid epidemic. Third, a standing $5,000 family emergency fund for grandparents in Monroe County who have taken custody of grandchildren after a parent's overdose. Tucker, who is 16 now, joined the fund's junior advisory board in April. He told me, on the drive home from the first meeting, that he wanted to study substance use counseling at West Virginia University when he graduated. I did not speak for a mile. Then I told him I would pay for every semester and every book and every roof over his head for the rest of his life. He said, "Grandpa, I know. The barn is back to being a barn. The loading dock is clear. The second floor loft is, once again, just a loft. My workbenches are back where they belong. Amelia's 4-H ribbons are back on the wall. Her sketchbook is back in the glass case. I auctioned my grandfather's mule-drawn hay mower in March for a charity fundraiser. I have done 6 small consignment auctions in the last 8 months for families in the county who needed them. The barn's Medeco locks are still in place. They are the same ones Miranda failed to cut in the November dark. I kept them out of a kind of stubbornness. A lock that held is a lock that deserves to stay. Wiley Holcomb and I rebuilt the 1953 Alice Chalmers that I bought back in September at the Lewisburg auction. It runs now. It pulls a disc harrow. Tucker drove it for the first time on a cold Saturday in April. He had his mother's grin the whole way across the pasture. If you ever find yourself in a fight like mine, remember this. You do not need to sue everyone who wrongs you. You need to read the code. You need to file the paper. You need to wait the days. And then you need to open the barn doors and let the inventory do the talking.